Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Ted, your coach of the Pummeling Licky Lickies, and I'm back for another installment of the PBF Power Rankings. But this time, I'm doing the singles division alongside with the moderator in the server, Yamel. Say hello.
Hello, guys. I'm kind of nervous.
Yeah, and same thing as last time for same thing as last time for the doubles ranking video. We're just gonna go over each team. A little. This video may be a little shorter than the doubles one, since there's less teams. So obviously we're going starting at rank number 14th all the way down to the first ranked team. So let's just jump right into um the ranking and yeah, let's begin. So
Oh,
first up, we have the Safaris and the Cyphers. Their tier is ranked in the D tier, and they're pushed by Slushy Boy.
yeah. What the team really has a problem is there are a lot of mons that do the same things, like belly drum mons. You have, for example, Ice Cube, Azumarill, and Snorlax. It's pretty much a gimmick team. He said as much already. That's pretty much a team. Everything has a self-harming move, and while it's a pretty, in my opinion, pretty cool idea, it's not it's not so good for synergy. He has not the best defensive Pokemon. Like his best defensive core would be like Claydol and Glare Weaving. He doesn't have real Earthquake switch-ins as well. He has three potential levitate mons and like a Selgor. But still, this is kind of lackluster if you are so weak to ground. He has
Yeah,
like so many mounts that are really destroyed by a ground move. Like Regieleki doesn't like grounds. The Savalon can switch into grounds. Magnezone hates grounds as well. And you have the Tortinate as well.
yeah,
It's yeah, it's really not too great for him. He has some rock weakness as well, like stealth rocks is the biggest problem there. Like with Savalon, usually you run a scarf move, a choice move, and the like the smaller ones, like Ice Cube and the Tortinator, the removal. Yeah, I think it's fine, but it's it really isn't the greatest. There are some rapid spinners, but you would rather have some other moves on them here, like Claydol is obviously the best there. But yeah, and looking at it again, like water is really good against them as well. Like in the overall, there are a lot of common weaknesses for the team. Not many switch-ins, but yeah, it's a gimmick team. It's to be expected.
yeah.
Eh,
Like you mentioned, like the ground weakness is very big for this team. Like I mentioned, for the other teams in the doubles division, um, possibly making a trade in mid-season would be really good for this team. But again, this is we're not the coaches. We're not the coach of this team, so we don't know how well it's gonna do in the matches in the season. So we just have to wait and see and how well it goes for the coach. Um, so any final thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, there's actually another thing is like the Z moves. I like the idea of giving one of his belly drummers a Z move, but he gave two of them one. It's Azumarill and Snorlax are the Z move uses, and I think that's kind of overkill. Something like Azelf would have been better with a Z move. Mm, it's, I think it's kind of a waste to have them both as the users, but I think it's a cool idea anyway. Like usually people just put them on mons with a lot of coverage. And it's something refreshing seeing it on a mon like Snorlax. It's I hope we can see some cool Z moves.
Yeah. All right. So next up we have the Silverville Scissors, coached by Night Owl. Obviously they're ranked 13th, and their tier is C minus. Um, I think overall the team has some generally good cores. Obviously the Corviknight is really scary in singles. Um, being able to run a Rocky Helmet or even boots can be really good for this team. However, some downsides to this, he has a lot of ice weaknesses, and Corver Knight being the only resisted mon being able to resist an ice beam or any ice moves is kind of bad. But yeah, I think overall the team composition is good. It's just that ice weaknesses that may kill the team if he's not careful.
Yeah. His only ice resist is a Cloister, which doesn't like the freeze dry and has horrible special defense. I really like the core of Hippowdon and Covenant. I think it works pretty well. But yeah, neither of them really like switching into the ice moves too often. Like it's the same with water moves. Both of them really don't want to be burned. It's bad for them. And another thing is like he has to rely on Corviknight defensively a lot. For example, against strong fairies, he's the only switching he has, and he has 4 weaknesses to fairies, and you can basically count Cloister as the weakness to any special move. Hippowdon, while he does bring a lot to the team, the sand isn't too great. He has the grassy terrain of Bulu to kind of counter it, but you rather just have the regeneration from the grassy terrain. The only one that really benefits from the sand would be Stoutlands, and the only ones that don't get shipped from it would be Stoutland, Covenant, and Garchomp. Like, even though his Mega gets shipped down, it's more of a setup sweeper. The same with Cloister. It's usually run with a Focus Sash, so that's just worse. So yeah, I don't think it all works together as great, but I'm open to be surprised, honestly.
Yeah,
I think Corviknight can pull the things together, but just synergy wise, that's a C-. I think is fair.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think that if they're able to pull off a couple things, potentially with like setup with Dragon Dance on both the Garchomp or the Alteria, I think it'll be really scary. But yeah, I think other than that, the weaknesses are kind of bad for the team. But again, you can work around that, and we'll see how it goes. Next up, we have the Sport Lisboa Bravery. I'm sorry, Dom. Their rank is 12th, and their tier is C-. You can take it away, Yamo.
Oh yeah, the Sport Lisbon, or Lisboa is probably fitting. I kind of like it and I kind of dislike it. I really like Sheer Force mons, but I think he overdid it a bit. He had 3 mons, all of them are Sheer Force users, and pretty much they have the same exact roles. They put on a life orb and they deal a lot of damage. I think, well, that is pretty neat that he has a lot of immediate damage. Like, there are rarely cases where you would want one of the other twos over like Darm. Darm does so much damage. Nidoking can at least be run defensively. But yeah, I really don't think it fits with the other 2 Sheer Force mons. Defensively, he is lacking as well. Like Rotom, Muk, and Fortress are his best defensive mons. And Fortress pretty much just sits there and puts up hazards. Can spin, granted, but it doesn't really do much. It can't really sweep on its own. It can punish a setup. It can full switch out. But usually just sits there. And if you know it's coming, it's even worse, I think. Muk, especially defensive, but lacks the recovery. You would have to run a barrier or something. So it's an offensive wall. It can't really continue to wall for you. And Rotom is pretty much his only real option for ground moves. He always has to bring it if he knows a ground mon is coming, because Blossom isn't really a resist. Can't really call it like that. If you want to run a physically defensive, it probably will still die in 2 hits. Like, switch into an Earthquake and then some coverage can kill it, or it just gets, I don't know. It can't really do much. Like, it gets strength theft and stuff, but it's not really a defensive mon. Can't really do much. Like, and Braviary is pretty much the same. You can switch into an Earthquake, but you're so slow and your typing is so weird, so bad that most ground types will have a rock move anyway, so you die probably through the either stab or coverage rock move. Or just knockoff. Knockoff as well is really bad for it. Its speed really holding it down. Can't really do much. But you have so much weaknesses to round. So important ones like Mega Diancie, the Nidoqueen, and the Marcus. You have 2 poison type that have the same weakness as in round here. And both are Nidoqueen is decently fast, but if you want it bulky, you can't really have a core. You always have to run Rotom and slap something on. And we haven't even talked about the Pyukumuku, which I don't really see the point here, because as I said before, he has a lot of immediate power, like a lot of sheer force mount that just can, from the offset, do a lot of damage. Mark can knock off. Mark is decently strong. AV's best set. Rotom can burn, Volt Switch out, can set up as well. Diancie has a lot of is really strong, is really fast. Dragapult is another one that it either set up Dragon Dance or just specs. It's really strong though. Your opponent doesn't really have that much moments where he really can set up, because most of your team punish him for it in some kind of way. So Pyukumuku is really unnecessary. Like, you don't fear setup as much as other people would do. Pyukumuku is pretty much this one set unaware with a counter, and yeah, that's pretty much everything I saw. Or like Soak, maybe recover. I don't really see it being useful on this kind of team. Yeah, we haven't even talked about those moves.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, if he's able to trade away the Pyukumuku for something a little bit more valuable for the team, I think that'll be good. But definitely the ground weakness is really apparent. Even though he has a couple of immunities and a few resists that are not too great, but they're there. So we'll have to keep that in mind throughout the season.
Yeah, that's true. Like, maybe Blossom surprised me. Maybe it really hard counters the grounds, and I'm underestimating it. But yeah, I really don't see it doing so much. Like, but the last thing I would really want to say about the team is that I really don't like the Z move on Nidoqueen. I understand that he doesn't have as much option, that because if you don't know, we banned the Z move on Dragapult. Yeah, just we voted on it, and we think it's a bit too strong with the Z moves.
Yeah.
But still, I don't think the Nidoqueen was his best option for Z moves. I think if he really wants something that actually does something with Z moves, he should have gone with Domanitan, strength-wise, or versatility with Blossom. Blossom can actually do something like Z Sleep Powder gives it +1 speed, so immediately sleeping the opponent, giving you a free turn basically to Quiver Dance and having double speed instead of just +1. It's much better. It's much better than what Nidoqueen can do. Nidoqueen really likes to have either Black Sludge, Life Orb, or maybe a choice Scarf, which I don't think is too great on it either. But the moves, I don't think are the way to go. But overall, I think the team's pretty strong. It's pretty much hyper offense in my opinion. So I think it can steamroll certain teams on pretty much from turn 1 onwards, pushing pressure. Yeah, so yeah, it's not completely unredeemable. That's why, yeah, I think it's fine. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to the next team, we have the Jersey Jirachis. They're ranked 11th, and their tier is C. First thoughts, it's a Sun team that doesn't like to take any ghost hits or any fire hits as well, which is really bad for this team, because once Slowbro is gone, there's not really many things that want to take fire hits, especially that Kartana. And even Venusaur in the Sun, even though it benefits with Chlorophyll, it doesn't want to take any strong fire hits from the opposing side, so that's really concerning. And as for the ghost hits, nothing wants to take a ghost hit, and the only immunity would just be the PZ. And again, once that goes down, nothing really wants to take a ghost hit. So yeah, those are just the main problems, but other than that, I think, again, this is one of those other, like, semi-defensive, hyper-offense teams that can certainly take kills, if not checked. Yeah, there's nothing really much else to be said about it from my side. Yamel, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mostly agree with you. Like, I think the Megazord Y can't be ignored, the Kartana can't be ignored, New King as well. It's really strong, especially in the draft. We know what's coming. New King has so much coverage and can push so much damage on the opponent. Slowbro is, I think, the best one to bring this threat in as well. Like, you can run it special defensive, you can run it physically defensive, you can tailor it to your very needs, and then just teleport out, bring one of these threats in, and yeah, it can really easily bring a favorable position for them. But what I really think the problems are is, one, you said it before, the Shadow Ball, but knockoff as well is really good here. He doesn't have a knockoff switch, and he really doesn't. Like, nothing likes to take a knockoff. Slowbro likes to have his item card. Like, card is his best option for knockoff switching because it can have a Z move. But there, you usually like the Scarf, you usually need it, especially when your opponent knows it's coming. It's predictable in kind of way. So you usually want the speed, just to make sure you can you can clean up later with it. But there are some other things that I really don't like. I don't like the Venusaur on the team mostly, just because, yeah, Megazord sets up the Sun, but immediately wastes one turn, and then you would have to switch out, and you have 3 turns of Sun Venusaur, and you have to basically switch hard into it. It's really not great. I don't think that Venusaur really helps the team a lot. It can maybe get one turn where it can do a lot. Like, you usually would like to have a turn to set up growth as well, but can't really. Tornadus doesn't like the Sun as well. It's another problem. Like, the Hurricanes just keep milking them, which isn't too great. One benefit would be, like, it's a Z move user, so he can just nuke something still in Sun. But if you have to use a Z move just to hit your move, I don't think it's too worth it. Like, you still have 3 ghost types on the team. One of them is Shedinja. Yeah, I don't know. Shedinja doesn't help on a Sun team as well. On a Rain team, better. Maybe not even there, because it dies anyway. But yeah, the problems here are really, really heavy. The Dark and Ghost weaknesses. You can easily get 6-0 by, for example, Dragapult, which you would need Scarf card for, just to revenge kill, but you always have to sack something. That's just for example. Obviously, in the draft, not everyone will have the mons, but I still think he will struggle with adjusting to ghost and dark moves, especially when you can just throw them off. But I don't think the team can be counted out just for the simple threat of a card and make that why. And maybe we'll see even Solar Blade on card in this draft. That would be amazing. Would be something new. Or not new, but fresh.
Yeah. All right. So next up we have the Utemus. They're ranked 10th and their tier is C. First thoughts on this team. Those three mons, Mew, Zapdos, and Gengar, are instant threats. Especially in singles. Zapdos can be your defensive wall. Can run Defog with boots. Can hit R with a Volt Switch or a Thunderbolt. Mew, again, is one of those ones that can learn basically all the moves in the game and can hit really good on both the physical and special side. And Gengar is just one of those fast ghost types that hits really hard with the Z move, or in general with the Life Orb or Specs. The rest of the team is a little bit surprising, but there are a few threats in there. Haxorus and Mega Pinsir are just a few. Mega Pinsir with the aerial ability with Quick Attack does a lot of damage. You'll mostly be running like Quick Attack, Close Combat, Rock Move, and maybe Protect, or even a third, or even a fourth move slot there. Haxorus was first impression, does a lot. Even with the Dragon Dance setup, is going to do a lot, even though it may not outspeed a lot of things, but it is there. Sylveon and the Audino are basically the same utility mons that you can have, but I feel like Sylveon's a little bit better with the Wish support, and I think, yeah, you can Wish Baton Pass in this format, so wishing and baton passing is really good for this team, which likes the health recovery. The last two mons are a little bit interesting with the Lantern and the Cradily, but they do have their niches, so that's good. I feel like the one outlier would, or the two outliers would just be the Colossal and Empoleon. This team doesn't really like to take ground hits or rock hits because, like we mentioned before, some of these Pokemon don't like ground hits, and the ones that resist the rocks don't like ground, and the ones that resist rock don't like ground moves. So, yeah, it's like a pick your poison team. Like you don't want to take a ground hit, or you don't like to take a rock hit, so you have to choose either way. But yeah, I think overall it's a good team. It's just those ground and rock weaknesses kind of ruin it a little bit. Yeah. Any thoughts, Yamo?
Yeah. As you said, like the ground, any mon that won't be hit by a ground move will be hit super effectively by a rock move, which is really bad. The two mons I would highlight, kind of again, would be like Colossal and Lantern as the outliers. I think you said Empoleon. I think Empoleon's fine. But I think the Lantern doesn't really have purpose. It just gives another ground weakness, because Cradily can pretty much do the same as Lantern can do. Like, it has Storm Drain, so it's immune to water moves, which you don't really care too bad. I mean, you don't have mons that really fear them too badly, except for Colossal, which is the mon I don't really see doing much. It can put up rocks and can spin them away, but I think if you wanted a fire type, I guess, you could have gotten something better. And Cradily is a better rock type overall. I think instead of Lantern, getting something else that benefits you a bit more would have been better. I think the idea was that there was a need of electric immunity, which I don't think is too necessary. You have good switch-ins in Cradily and Haxorus, but I think getting any type of ground mon would have worked better with the team, just to lessen the threat of ground moves. Yeah, but overall, I like especially the first human like Mew, Zapdos, Gengar, Pinsir, Empoleon, and Exodus look really good. I think they pretty much will carry the team while Sylveon gradually, Lanto maybe, will just mostly help support them some kind of way. Maybe Sylveon will actually sweep with a cool CM set. But we'll see about that. Like, yeah, but mostly what you said, I would totally agree with.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the team is good. It's just like we mentioned before, the ground and rock pieces are pretty relevant for this team. So yeah, we'll just to see how the team goes well in the regular season. Next up, we have the Alteco de Mawile, coached by Tom. Their rank is 9th, and their tier is C. Yamel, you can take it away.
Yeah, the biggest problem we had with the team is there are barely defensive ones. Like, the best defensive one would be like Piloswine, and maybe some arguments are made for Kecleon. While you can run the Tornadus, Jirachis, and the Hydreigon defensively, that really takes away from your offensive threat. Like, if you make them defensively, you pretty much have to rely on Slowbro for your offense, which isn't too great. So defensively, it's kind of bad, but I think offensively, it's pretty strong. Especially like Beedrill. Beedrill can really easily clean late game. Tornadus still can hit like a truck. Jirachis got a really versatile move pool. And Hydreigon as well is really strong. You can run a Scarf, Specs. You can set up with it. It got some pretty cool tags as well. So yeah, I think it's pretty much again some kind of weird hyper offense. You even have the option of putting up webs to help your kind of slower mons like Hydreigon or even the Cleaver. Even though one problem I would have with Cleaver is like there are rarely cases where you would take it with you, just because Mega Beedrill is a better pick for if you want something to hit like psychic types or something super effective. Like I don't know. It's just usually you would go with Mega Beedrill, and Cleaver would just be a lesser Mega Beedrill for you. Maybe it will do something cool like the Rock Stab can come in use. But yeah, it's pretty much to me the same kind of mon. And yeah, I think the biggest detriment to the team are the lower tier mons like Kecleon, Ditto, Slurpuff, and Piloswine. While they can function pretty good like Piloswine with Evil Light, they're kind of like also like a knockoff, really ruins most of them. Like Ditto can do something, but if you know it's coming, you can prepare for it, like making a sweeper whose moves all are resisted, or you have for every move you have immunity or something like that. You can always do something if you know a Ditto is coming. So it can be a dead pick and can pretty much win you games. It's wildcard. Kecleon is kind of weak. It has a lot of coverage. It can set up stealth rocks actually. Yeah, maybe it will do something. Maybe it will do nothing. It's pretty much the same as Ditto to me. I don't know. Lurantis is a mon that really needs setup. I mean, pretty much a setup with the attacks, but its speed isn't too great. I don't know. Yeah. Overall, I would say that setup is here pretty much the game for him. He has some really cool things they can do, but it's mostly he has to set up to be threatening, except for Mega Beedrill. Yeah. I think that will come as a problem. But I think we can understate how good his first 3 months are. That Tornadus, Jirachis, and Hydreigon. I think they work together pretty well as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this team could use a little bit more bulk. But at the same time, I like stuff like Palestine and Tornadus Therian with Regenerator is really good for the defensive side. But stuff like Hydreigon and Mega Beedrill don't want to take super effective hits. And the same thing could go for the Cleavor or the Lurantis, but that's without setup. So we'll just have to see how well Tom goes with this team. Obviously, Tom has done well in the singles format, so we're looking forward to see how he manages this team, and we'll just see at the end of the regular season.
Yeah.
Next up, we have the Florence Lord Cannons, coached by Marcelo. They're ranked 8th, and their tier is C+. First thoughts on this team. He has some good high-power offensive Pokemon with the Mega Latias, the Zeraora, and the Infernape. Those 3 are really good. The Scissor and Donphans are good defensive roles, either on the defensive or the special defensive side. And the rest of the picks are kind of niche, I guess. Miltank is there to take with Thick Fat with like the fire and ice weaknesses that this team doesn't like. And 2 other abilities, Scrappy and Sepsipper, are always good. Zarude, I've never personally used it in singles, but I've seen it done well in the singles format, so I'm interested to see how well it does here. Togetic, Garbodor, and Vaporeon all have their niches, Vaporeon being the better one for the water type Pokemon in this team. Having Heal Bell, Baton Pass is really good. Obviously, it can be a special attacker as well with like Scald, Acid Armor type of set. I think the only outlier would be the Suin Avalag. Maybe even like a better ice type on the team would be good, but I get why it's on the team just to be an ice type. But at the same time, I feel like if they really wanted an ice type, they could get something else. But I do understand why it's there. Yeah. Nothing else from me. Yamel, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. The Avalok is something I really don't like on the team as well. Mostly because Donphan pretty much does the same. Like, it gets Ice Shard as well, it gets Rocks as well, it has Sturdy as well, but it gets Stab Earthquake, I think it has better bulk just because it's not as frail as this thing on the special side, and its typing is just much better. Like, yeah, Everlike has pretty high physical defense, but fighting moves will still hurt it a lot, and gets hit super effectively by Earthquake. You would always run Donphan. The root, while it can be pretty strong, I don't think it's so necessary on this team, mostly because you already have their aura. Their roles are pretty much the same. The only thing you have over their aura would be the jungle healing. Just because both can set up Bulga, both have their strong stabs, but I think their aura is better in electric. And their aura, while it does not get stab on it, has knockoff though. And I think that's much more valuable than the stab dog type. But yeah, the root can maybe put in some work in certain matchups, but I feel like it's kind of wasted on this type of team. Yeah. Overall, I think the team's pretty fine. I don't like that it's, in my opinion, pretty lackluster on the special side. Like, you have the Mega Latias, you have the Infernape, and you have the Vaporeon, but like, Latias is kind of setup mon. It really needs a setup to be that threatening. And the Infernape as well, it needs to get a +2 with Nasty Blows or something to become real great danger. So you have a lot of options physically, but you lack the options in special offense. Yeah, but I think defensively the team's pretty well. I think pretty much we said everything that could be said. Or yeah, if you want to add something, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I think overall the team is good, has a good team composition. It's just that blood could be swapped out for something else. And I think, yeah, I think it's good overall. Next up, we have the Super Kings Gambit, coached by Sizzle X, I think. They're ranked 7th, and their tier is C+.
Yeah, one problem this team has that's really blatant would be the speed. His fastest one is Crobat with 130, but the next fastest one would be Arcanine and Activire with 95. That isn't too great in a draft. Like, you're forced to run Scarfmons in certain matchups. Having more options for speed would be good. I get that's what the Shuckle is there for, but I don't think Shuckle really fits the team too well. Mostly because his only option of removing hazards on his own side would be his Crobat with Defog, wasting his Shuckle. I don't really like it. The Shuckle can do stuff. Possibly it can set up the hazards if you're fine with leaving hazards on your field. But yeah, Shuckle usually will probably be kind of that weight. And always being forced to run Defog Crobat is kind of bad as well. I really like the Goodra though. I think the Goodra will see some really cool plays. It has a great move pool. It's got really great stats. It can attack from both sides. And yeah, I think it's just really great for singles. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what this can do. Yeah, but otherwise he has a great defensive one, and Alonomola just doesn't have another defensive one to really run a good balanced team. That's pretty much the only problem. But what I think his team does really good is the threat of immediate damage, and like Rillaboom and Primarina are really threatening with Abandon in the specs, for example. And he has some great options for setup as well, and Rillaboom with SD and Reuniclus obviously can really run a threatening stored power set. What really pulls the team further down, I think, are the Wigglytuff of the Sableye. Sableye does have some values other mons don't have, like rank stability with Blow-Wisp. It can work as a semi-physical wall, but it really isn't. It's far too playable. It can't hold either Violite or something, so it has no options of boosting instead. And you can't even run an AV on it because you want the status moves. You pretty much have to invest everything into bulk and just hope your bulk can. The Wigglytuff, while it has a decent move pool, it has Stealth Rocks, it has Thunder Wave, and I don't see it doing much except for maybe against Dragapult. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see these two really pulling the weight. Shuckle's borderline to me as well. The other ones are fine, but like the Crobat is pretty limited. So basically cutting his team down to 7 mons. They're pretty strong, but yeah, I think he's kind of limited with the way he used his lower tiers picks.
Yeah, I think like adding a good ground type to the team would be good.
Yeah, that's true.
But other than that, I think like what you mentioned before, I think the weaknesses and the apparent potential failures that could happen with the team is there and shouldn't be ignored. So again, like other teams, we would just have to see how how well the coach performs in the regular season and see how they manage the team.
Yeah, that's true.
Next up, we have the Sexy Stark Sharks, coached by Sexy Alexei, ranked 6th, and their tier is B-. First thoughts on this team, the Mega Latios is the immediate threat on this team, along with the Xercatry. The Xercatry can run a Z move, so having Gigavolt Havoc, Stab, Electric move, and potentially an Electric Terrain is going to do a lot. The defensive core is good with the Ferrothorn, Umbreon, and the water spider that I forget its name.
Arachnids.
Yeah, Arachnids.
Yeah.
Those three are good for the defensive core. Double ground type with the Mudsdale and the Sandslash is not good in a way. He can switch out into Arachnid to absorb those water moves, but other than that, he doesn't really have a way to take those water hits. And even though Ferrothorn doesn't mind it, it doesn't want to be chipped down for the opposing team for it to take it out. So, yeah, that's the only issue with this team. Obviously, Hisuian Arcanine is a little bit. I think it's the same speed stat as regular Arcanine, or a little bit slower. I think. I'm not sure.
I think it's 5 points slower. It's 90 instead of 90.
Okay, so it is slower, but it still can hit pretty hard for a fire rock type, which is really offensive. So yeah, nothing really much else to be said. I think the defensive core is there and it's good. I think the power could be a little bit more there, I guess, for this team, but yeah, I think overall it's a good team comp.
Yeah. What I don't like is that his defensive core and Ferrothorn Umbreon pretty much is ruined by close combat. His close combat switch-ins, well, he has 3, are Latios and Xatu and the Arachnid, but all of them really don't like the coverage most fighting types have. Like Arachnid and Xatu really don't like the rock moves. Xatu doesn't like the knockoff, and Latios doesn't want to be U-turned on. So it's usually hard against most fighting types. And another thing that I don't really like on the team would be the Ninetales, because while it can put up the Aurora Veil, not too much of its Pokemon really benefit from it. Like, yeah, Latios likes it for setup. Xerxitry maybe as well. But it's for Xerxitry especially, it's really not necessary. Like, it will take a lot from any attack anyway. And the best thing if you want to set up on Xerxitry, just run the Hypnosis. Like, the Ninetales pretty much gives the team chip, and it's an Ice type and a Fairy type. It's pretty much what it does to the team. There's no real synergy with it, but it's still a pretty good mon. So I don't think it's too bad of a detriment. It's just, yeah, mostly the fighting weakness of the team is kind of bad. And you mentioned it before, like the Sandslash and the Mudsdale is... The Sandslash, I don't really see the point of it being there. You don't hate rocks so much that you always have to bring the Sandslash. Like, you don't need the Rapid Spin that desperately. It's pretty much only Ninetale that's been hard annoyed by it, and you still have the Xatu. And the Mudsdale it's just much more offensive. It's much more bulky. The only times you would want to bring the Sandslash is if you really want the Rapid Spin, which honestly you usually wouldn't want to. But yeah, I think the defensive core is decently good, just cause it's an Umbreon and it's a Ferrothorn. Usually you're okay with these, and Arachnid can limit the opponent in certain ways. Xatu can limit the opponent as well, though it's not the focus on the physical side. But yeah, the only thing that I would like add now would be that defensively he's kind of reliant on setup, kinda is keyword. Xerxes and Latios both can do a lot of damage. Mian Shao does more damage than we think as well. And yeah, the 115 attack of the Syrian Arcanine can't be ignored too. Yeah, but I think that's more of a meh what damage is concerned, in my opinion. Yeah, I think it's overall decent. There are some glaring issues, but I don't think they are that horrible that you can't work around it. Like, at least there are some pretty good. There's some options for him for fighting types. It's just he has to look out for them. He has to really think about what he will do against the fighting types, and he has to predict a lot, I think.
Yeah. I think overall it's a good team. Cores are there, everything's there. I just think again, it's one of those teams with the weaknesses you just have to watch out for, and we'll see how it goes. Next up, we have the macabre mandibus, obviously coached by Yamel. His team is ranked 5th, and the tier is B-. So I'll take it away here. I think it's a really good team comp. Obviously, the setup is really good here with the spikes and rocks, but Steelix being your only rocks user is kind of concerning. I would probably like to see more of that, but I think it's good. Spikes and toxic spikes are obviously good as well, with the Quillfish Sui. You do have your attackers with the Namorous and the Sceptile, as well as the Bascu Legion female. Those three specifically can hit really hard. And if you don't really want to take electric hits, you can just always Mega Evolve the Sceptile and take those hits with the Lightning Rod. But you do have those immunities with the Steelix. Silvally is a little bit interesting since it can be any type in the game at the moment with 18 different forms. So it's going to be really interesting how well you use that to your advantage, because your opponents will have to be wary of that, because they won't know which form it's going to be every week. So just something to keep that in mind. Cryogonal and Illumise have their usage. Obviously, Prankster Tailwind is good, but not so prominent in singles, but it can be used. Obviously, it gets Thunder Wave and a few other status moves. Cryogonal is there for mostly Rapid Spin, I would assume. It can be a good Ice type, has decent speed. Every other stat is mediocre, but it is usable. And yeah, I think this team every Pokemon has their usage, and it can be used well. We'll just have to see how well it performs in the regular season. Weaknesses, they're not so apparent, but they are there. I would say a weakness to Rock is apparent with the Namorous and the Mandibuzz, but you do have water Pokemon and Sceptile, obviously. Ground is obviously there as well, but you do have 2 flying types to switch into those ground moves. So those are just a few things to keep in mind. But yeah, other than that, I think the team is well rounded, and I think you can do really well compared to the other teams. Do you have anything? You have anything else to be said, Yamel, about your team?
Yeah. A weakness you forgot is actually the fire weakness.
Yeah.
For Mega, I have 5 fire weaknesses, which is really bad. Can't lie. I really did ignore this. Didn't really see it myself. But yeah, I'm usually for this team, I kind of ignored the typings a little bit, not too much, obviously. I still wanted to have a little bit of diversity, but I want to see how good the Silvally will balance it out. So I'm looking forward to using it there, but yeah, I think my team even could have been a bit lower, maybe. but yeah, I really like my defensive core. Obviously, I took it, I drafted it, and I really want to see what Namorous and Megaceptor can do for me, especially the History and Basque Legion I'm looking forward to. So yeah, let's see what I will do.
Yeah. All right. So next up, we have the Slippery Sluggers, coached by Jam. They're in 4th place, and their tier is B.
Oh yeah. But I hope it's fine if I just take it away from.
Yeah, that's fine.
Team right now. You know, the immediate thing that we saw when we looked at this team was like the one half, especially from Tangrowth to Desklops, really looks like stall. It's probably the closest thing we have to stall this draft. And the defensive capabilities of the mons really can't be ignored. Like Desklops can sit on a lot of mons, Tangrowth can sit on a lot of mons, Slowking can sit on a lot of mons, and obviously Skarmory can as well. And just then you have the wild card of Ursaring. Ursaring is allowed to have the Eviolite and will get the boost. So who knows just how bulky it will be, and just if it gets status, just how insane it can be. Like it could be Quick Feet, it could be Guts, it could do something, like it could do nothing as well. That's the point. Yeah, we have some really good offensive mons here as well, and Weavile, Tapu Koko can run a really crazy spec set, especially in a draft. It can go really wild. And Cinderace, even without Libero, if it's banded, it can do so much damage. You really expect it to be so much worse than before, but in actuality, it's still really strong and can still U-turn on you. And yeah, and it's basically hazard remove as well. And yeah, and not to mention his defensive core does have Regenerator, which is really good as well. And Koku can be run as support as well. The only thing that I really think that could have be done more is the special offensive side. Like, yeah, you have Koku, but Koku pretty much has to use specs, or his special offense is really lackluster. You have the Noivern, which can be strong as well, but usually it's kind of hit or miss. Really, because of Hurricane. And the other mons you really could run special offensively would be Tangrowth and Slowking, which would be kind of a waste. Depends on the matchup, obviously, but I think special offense really takes this team down a bit. I think it's pretty great. Defensively, it can hold its own probably any matchup. It has some really good offensive mons, especially with the amount of U-turns and the teleport of Slowking this team has. He has many options of bringing the huge threats in, like a banded Weavile, for example, and then just knock off Triple Axel, or even an insane Focus Punch, or just bringing in the Cinderace and keeping the U-turn on. You can pressure the opponents a lot while still having a really bulky team, which I think is pretty insane, especially in a draft where you kind of have to scout mostly to see if the opponent has coverage, or to find out a set. A team like this can be really, really useful.
Yeah, I think you covered all the points that I wanted to say. I think it's one of the teams that are closer to stall, like you said. So, being that most stall teams don't quite work out in draft, as some do fail, but I'm looking forward to seeing how this team performs in the regular season, and I do
Yeah,
really
sure.
want it to succeed. Um, but we'll just have to see how that goes.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Next up,
definitely.
we have the Cambridge Camerups, coached by Squirrely. His team is ranked third, and his tier is B plus. Um, some notable points to point out: Gliscor, Gastrodon, and the Celesteela are some of the notable Pokemon on this team. Honestly, all three are pretty bulky, except for Gliscor, which doesn't like to take any ice moves. But other than that, it is really bulky. Um, the main offensive pressures would probably be that Mega Gallade and the Superior. Um, Obviously, both are fairly fast and can hit really hard on the special or physical side. Um, Tentacruel, it's a good rapid spin user. It has toxic spikes, and I think it gets spikes as well. I'm not sure. Um, yeah, other than that, I think it's a pretty decent mon. Zora Kursui, I think it has potential in singles. Slap on the specs, and it can do a lot of damage. And being immune to ghost moves is really good since ghost is a really common offensive type. Delphox and the Alolan Golem. I'm not sure about the usage, but I think they're just one of those. They're just there for the fire or ground Pokemon. Rock or ground, I can't remember for the Alolan Golem. I know it's electric type, but I can't remember if it's electric ground or electric rock. But whatever.
It's Electric Rock.
Okay, so electric rock.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think they're just there just to support the team. Um, and having a fire type is always good. So I think the Delphox is a good pick. Florges and the Drapion are honestly good picks as well. Florges has Wish. I don't know if it gets. I'm not fairly sure it gets Baton Pass, but if it does, it's another one of those Wish and Baton Pass users. Um, Having a good defensive fairy type is also good. Um, so yeah, and Drapion obviously it's a good poison type. Can hit really hard. Again, it can add toxic spikes as well, and set up those hazards. But overall, I think the team deserves the rank where it's at, and we'll just to see how it goes for Swirly in the regular season. Um, yeah, that's it
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. What I would like to add is I think I like the Golem actually on the team, mostly because of its ability, Magnapul. Um, it actually you would have to run like Choice Scarf on it, but it has the potential to destroy opposing Steel types with maybe an Earthquake, maybe a Fire Punch, maybe it's still flying and it can go boom. Um, Oh no, it can't go boom. with a wild shot. But
Yeah,
point is, it has the potential to ruin opposing steel types, so that the superior actually um, can really go nuts. The superior is really strong, even though it basically only has Leaf Storm as attacking move. Since we don't allow the hidden power, it doesn't get the coverage it needs. Um, but it's still the most common set, like leaf storm, glare, leech seed, and substitute usually does something in a match. Like even if you can't hit something super effectively or even neutral, or are always like 4 times resist with your leaf storm, you can still glare it and help the rest of the team out. Just switch into one of your defensive mons, like you said before. Yes, really good defensive mons like Gliscor, Gastrodon, Telestila, the Tentoxer, and even the Florges, all pretty much are really good defensively, while some of them still pack a punch when you want them to. I really like the Drapion as well. It can put up Toxic Spikes, so it has actually 2 options for Toxic Spikes. Not sure about spikes on Tentacruel myself, but the Drapion gets SD, it's faster than you would think with, I think, 95 speed. Gets stab knockoff, has sniper ability, can run Night Slash and cross poison. I really would like to see what he does with it. It can be really cool. The only really issue I would have with the team is most of his mons are kind of weak at first. They all need some kind of setup. The strongest would be the Mega Glade, which, yeah, it is decently strong, but it's not uncounterable. But I hope to see the Alone Golem do something for it as well. Like maybe opponent has something that really counters it, and like a Corver Knight, and this thing comes in. And, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's a well-balanced team. Has some really offensive threats after setup, especially. Yeah, defensively is really good. Just really balanced team, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. Alright, so moving on to the next team, we have the Mumu Momotons, coached by Lord Voltaire. His team is ranked 2nd, and his tier is B+. Yamel, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I just said about Squirrely's team that is really balanced, pretty good team here. But I think this team is even more balanced. Like, there's no type that can just go through the team. You would think that with 2 water types as most defensive ones on this team, like his defensive core is mostly Swampert and Tapu Fini, you would think that like grass would destroy him, but his Mega pretty much completely denies it. Mega Scissor just benefits a lot from the lack of hidden power, and its defensive capabilities it gets when it Megas are just really good. And Porygon 2 as well, real defensive one. You pretty much have to bring a fighting type just to counter it. Really, really great. Just really good type diversity, really good resistances. Yeah, some really cool offensive ones as well. In the Entei, for example, and the Latios. They can do a lot of damage. Yeah, I think it's just a really, really well-balanced team. He has some defog options. Yeah, he has some Hazards options. The Lilligant is a kind of weird pick. I mean, it can do a lot, but it gets countered pretty easily as well. Yeah, but I think that mons like Porygon and Swampert will help it as well. Just with statusing the opponents and like flip turn or teleport into it to create a position for it to really do a lot. Yeah, the one that I never really thought about too much on this team would be the Klinklang, or what? Klinklang? I think it is. I don't see the point. Like, it doesn't do anything that Scissor really can do. The same as Vikavolt. He already has this electric move, so the Klinklang just doesn't really have a role here. It could potentially sweep, but it doesn't really need it. Rotom Frost is cool just for the Blizzard, for the same as with the Klinklang. Like, the electric moves aren't too much of a benefit anyway. Like, Vikavolt is pretty much better at it. But I think the Rotom Frost can be pretty cool in certain matchups. With the Will-O-Wisp, with the Drake, with the Blizzard. And it still can run Nasty Plot and potentially sweep. It has decent speed stats, so it's not to be underestimated offensively. Yeah, I just think that balance-wise, this is the strongest team in the draft. It's really hard to find good mons against it, I think. Yeah, it's really just the strongest balanced team we have. The only problem would be like if you want really strong moves immediately, you pretty much a force to run Specs, Latios, and Bandit Ante. Pickable's a bit too slow to be that much of a threat. You have to run Agility to fix that. But yeah, I think this team will be really hard to face in the draft.
Yeah. I think the defense is there as well. And I think you covered every single point about the team, so nothing really else to be said from me. And finally, moving on to the first ranked team, we have the Sunny Shore City Stamens, coached by Tyndall. Obviously, his rank is first, and the tier value is A-. So, first thoughts on this team, the Sun Core is really threatening with Tyranitar and Excadrill. Both can switch into various different Pokemon that the rest of the team doesn't like to take. Like the Buzzwole doesn't like to take any flying hits, so Tyranitar or Excadrill can switch in and take those flying hits. Or if since both don't like to take fighting hits, even the Mega Venusaur or the Buzzwole can come in and take those fighting hits. So that's really good on that side. Quagsire and Shaman are good picks. Shaman with Seed Flare, Leech Seed, Protect, and I think it also gets Substitute as well. So running a similar set to kind of what Serperior likes to run is really good. Obviously, the one drawback is that it can't run Hidden Powder. But I think other than that, Shaman's a really good grass type. Quagsire is a good wall. Again, it won't take any grass hits, but its teammates will gladly take a couple grass hits. So that's good on that part. Emboar and Glaceon are kind of like value picks. Emboar is a good fire type. I think it can hit really hard with like a Heat Crash, being very slow.
The
Go
best
ahead.
for him would be Reckless Flare Blitz.
Oh yeah,
That's the insane part, and it's got Head Smash as well. Gets Wild Charge, so yeah, you really have to can't ignore it. You really can't ignore it. Bandit or Scarf can both do a lot this draft, I think.
yeah. Glaceon is another niche pick as well. I think it's a good ice type because some of these teams in the power rankings don't like to take any ice moves, so Glaceon is good for that. Articuno and Manton kind of fall into a similar role with Tailwind, but with Articuno having both Tailwind and Trick Room is really good, especially for the Sloramons. But yeah, I think other than that, it gets good utility, gets double screens, has a few other status moves, and Ambipom is good in singles with the Fake Out, and Thunder Wave, Taunt, Knockoff, just to name a few moves, does a good amount of damage, and is also another good support mon. So I think overall, compared to other teams, I think it's very good, and I think it's very deserving being ranked number 1. Yamel, do you have any thoughts on this team?
Oh yeah. Like you mentioned before, the defensive core Titar just synergizes so well with Venur and Buzzwole. And back on the Ambipom, what I would like to add is his team has a lot of really strong physical mons, and Ambipom can really benefit from it with a beat up set. That can't really understate it. It really can do a lot. Ambipom usually is kind of overlooked. But yeah, especially in a draft, it can get free chip on mons. It has decent coverage. It can really do a lot. And I really liked what you mentioned about the Galarian Articuno with the PR and the Tailwind. Because especially in singles where you don't see these moves too often, and in a draft, even more specifically, it can really turn the tides of the game. For example, Ambor in Trick Room in singles can be really insane. Like, just slap on a bandit and you get 3 moves of Trick Room and just destroy a team. It can be really crazy. Glaceon as well, another one that can be really surprising how much damage it does. The defensive core is really good on this team, I think. Mantine, while not too necessary, mostly, because you mostly have everything covered, can still be a surprising addition to the defensive core. And it really helps the team, like, yeah. Shaman Seed Flare can destroy teams on its own. Yeah, it just comes to see what the participants will do against this team, honestly, because I just mainly the core of T-Tar, Excadrill, and Venusaur are pretty annoying to deal with. So I really would like to see what people will come with crazy solutions to this. Been thinking about it myself, actually, but yeah, it will be really hard to deal with for any of the other teams, where I think it's really deserving of the first place. It's a really strong team. Even the lower picks have their values. Yeah, I think this is really deserving first pick, first rank here.
Yeah. I think that's it from us. Now going back to the title slide, do you have anything else, any final thoughts to say to the viewers or to the players in the singles league in general, where we ended off?
Yeah, I just hope everyone has a fun time with the draft. Mostly about fun anyway, and just, yeah. I mean, if there are any problems, like, just message me. Okay, don't message me. I don't want to be flooded. Yeah, just have fun. Just do cool sets. Just, if you want to try something, try it. We're all here just to have fun, to enjoy the game, and I think that's the most important part here.
Yeah, and again, take this power rankings with a grain of salt, because we don't know we know most of the players, but we don't know everybody, since again there are fairly couple new players, so we don't know how well they can manage the team or how good their skills are, so we'll just have to see. And yeah, good luck to everybody, and until next time, VDL Nation and PBF members, peace.